Hey everyone, welcome back to English Story Podcast. I'm John, and as always, I'm joined by my amazing co host, Zara.
Hi, everyone. We're so excited to have you here with us today. If you've ever wondered how some people just seem to think in English naturally while you still find yourself translating everything in your head, then this episode is for you.
That's right. Today, we're talking about how to build an English brain, the ability to think, react, and express yourself in English without needing to translate from your native language.
Think about it. How do fluent speakers sound so effortless? It's because they don't pause to translate in their heads. Their brains are trained to process English instantly. But here's the good news. You don't have to be a native speaker to do this. With the right techniques, you can rewire your brain to think in English too.
And trust me, once you start thinking in English, your speaking will become so much easier. You'll respond faster, feel more confident, and English will become second nature to you.
So, in today's episode, we'll break it all down. We'll start by discussing how your brain adapts to a new language, then move on to practical steps you can take to train your mind to think in English.
And of course, we'll end with an interactive challenge to help you apply what you've learned right away.
So, grab your notebook, get comfortable, and let's dive into the science and strategies behind building an English brain.
Before we dive into the practical steps, let's take a moment to understand how our brains actually adapt to a new language. Have you ever noticed that when you spend a lot of time around a different language, whether it's watching TV shows, listening to music, or talking to native speakers, English words and phrases start popping up in your mind without effort?
Exactly. That's because our brains are naturally designed to adapt to new environments, including languages. It's a process called neuroplasticity, which is just a fancy way of saying that your brain can rewire itself and create new connections based on what you practice regularly. The science of bilingual thinking.
So, here's how it works. When you're exposed to English, whether by reading, listening, or speaking, your brain starts forming new neural pathways. These are like little highways in your brain that make it easier to process and recall words, phrases, and sentence structures over time.
And the more you engage with English, the stronger these pathways become. That's why language immersion is so effective, because your brain gets constant input and it adapts naturally to process English without needing to translate every word.
Right. Think of it like muscle memory. If you practice a new skill, like playing the piano or riding a bike, it feels awkward at first, but the more you do it, the more automatic it becomes. It's the same with English. Why language immersion works.
And that brings us to language immersion, one of the most powerful ways to train your brain to think in English. Have you ever heard of people who move to a new country and suddenly start speaking fluently in just a few months? That's because they're constantly surrounded by English.
Exactly. Their brain has no choice but to adapt. Every conversation, every sign they read, every announcement they hear, it's all in English. Over time, their brain starts processing it faster and faster until it becomes second nature.
But don't worry, you don't have to move to an English-speaking country to get these benefits. We'll share some simple and effective ways to create your own English immersion environment, no matter where you live.
That's right. And now that we understand how the brain adapts to English, let's get into the practical steps you can take to rewire your brain and start thinking in English every day. Now that we understand how the brain adapts to a new language, let's talk about some practical steps you can take to rewire your brain for English thinking. The goal is to get to a point where your brain processes English naturally, without constantly translating from your native language.
Exactly. And don't worry, this doesn't happen overnight. But if you practice these simple habits daily, you'll notice a real difference in the way you think and speak in English. Label your surroundings in English.
Let's start with something super easy. Look around you. What do you see? A table, a chair, a window, a lamp? Instead of thinking about these objects in your native language first, start labeling them in English.
This is a great technique because it helps your brain create instant word associations in English. For example, instead of seeing a sofa and first thinking of the word in your native language before translating, you train your brain to recognize it as sofa right away.
Yes. And to make it even more effective, you can use sticky notes. Write the English names of objects around your house and stick them on those items. Every time you see the note, your brain strengthens the English connection.
And once labeling objects becomes easy, challenge yourself. Start describing what you see. Instead of just thinking table, think a wooden table with a glass top or a small round table next to the sofa.
Exactly. The more details you add, the more you train your brain to think in full English sentences. Describe your emotions in English.
This next step is really powerful. Instead of just thinking about objects in English, start describing your feelings in English too.
Yes, we all have moments when we feel happy, frustrated, excited, or tired. Instead of thinking, I'm tired in your native language and translating it, just train your brain to say it directly in English.
Write and take it a step further. Instead of just thinking I'm tired, add details. I feel exhausted because I had a long day. I'm so happy because I finally finished my project. I'm a little nervous about my test tomorrow, but I feel prepared.
The more you practice describing how you feel, the more natural it becomes. And soon you won't have to translate your emotions. You'll just express them in English automatically.
Switch to English for small thoughts. This is a game changer for training your brain. Instead of trying to think in English all the time, start small. Pick one moment during your day when you'll think only in English.
Yes, it could be when you wake up in the morning and plan your day. Okay, today I have a meeting at 10 a.m. I need to buy groceries after work. I feel really motivated today.
Or maybe you can do it when you're commuting or waiting in line. Instead of letting your mind wander, just start thinking in English about what's happening around you.
The key here is consistency. If you do this every day, you're training your brain to default to English first instead of your native language. Speak to yourself in English.
Now, this might sound a little strange, but trust me, it works. Start talking to yourself in English throughout the day.
You don't have to speak out loud unless you want to. Just think or whisper to yourself about what you're doing. For example, I'm making coffee right now. I need to add some milk. I should send that email before lunch. This movie looks interesting. I wonder what it's about.
The reason this is so effective is that it forces you to form sentences in English. And the more you do that, the easier it becomes to speak fluently in real conversations. Set your digital world to English.
Finally, one of the easiest ways to immerse yourself in English is to change your phone and apps to English.
Yes. Think about how much time we spend looking at our phones. If your phone settings, social media, and even Google searches are all in English, your brain gets used to seeing and processing English every day.
It's a small change, but it makes a huge difference in the long run. Quick recap.
So, to quickly summarize, here are 5 simple ways to rewire your brain for English thinking. Label your surroundings. Train your brain to recognize English words instantly.
Describe your emotions. Start forming more natural sentences.
Think in English for small moments, like planning your day.
Talk to yourself in English. Describe what you're doing.
Switch your phone and apps to English. Get daily exposure without extra effort.
If you start practicing these daily, you'll notice a huge improvement in how easily English comes to your mind.
And next, we'll talk about some everyday habits that will help you make this process even stronger. Let's get into it.
Now that we've covered the steps to rewire your brain for English thinking, let's talk about the habits you can build into your daily routine to make this process even stronger. The more exposure and practice you get, the more automatic thinking in English will become.
Exactly. The goal is to create an environment where English is part of your everyday life, even if you don't live in an English-speaking country. And the best way to do that? Develop daily habits that make English learning feel effortless. Watch content with English subtitles.
One of the most effective ways to train your brain to think in English is to immerse yourself in English media. But here's the trick. Watch TV shows, movies, or YouTube videos with English subtitles, not subtitles in your native language.
Yes. This forces your brain to connect the spoken English words to their meaning instead of translating them. Over time, your brain starts recognizing patterns, phrases, and sentence structures without needing to pause and translate.
A great way to use this method is to watch a short video or scene with subtitles to understand the meaning. Watch it again without subtitles to test your comprehension. Repeat key phrases out loud to practice speaking naturally.
This method works especially well if you choose content you actually enjoy. Whether it's movies, podcasts, or vlogs, the more fun it is, the easier it is to stay consistent.
Practice situational thinking in English. Now, this is a fun one. Have you ever imagined what you'd say in a situation before it happens?
Oh, definitely. Like before ordering food at a restaurant, I might mentally prepare my order. Hi, I'd like a cappuccino and a croissant, please. Could I get that with almond milk?
Exactly. And you can practice this for any situation you expect to be in. Whether it's asking for directions, making a phone call, or even introducing yourself at an event, you can mentally rehearse your English before you speak.
And the best part? The more you do this, the less nervous you'll feel in real conversations. Because your brain has already gone through the process, it will feel more natural when you actually say the words out loud.
To practice, try this challenge. Think of a situation you expect to be in today: ordering coffee, greeting a friend, making small talk.
Imagine how you would say everything in English.
If you want to take it a step further, say it out loud or even record yourself practicing.
Engage in active listening. We talked earlier about watching content with subtitles, but another powerful habit is active listening.
Yes. Most people listen passively, meaning they hear the words but don't really process them. But if you practice active listening, you'll start to pick up English naturally.
Here's how you can do it. Listen to English podcasts or audiobooks while doing everyday tasks. Pause and repeat key sentences. This improves pronunciation and fluency. Try to summarize what you just heard in your own words.
One of the best exercises is to listen to a short clip, maybe 30 seconds to 1 minute. Then pause and try to explain it in English. This forces your brain to think in English instead of just absorbing information. Challenge yourself to speak without planning.
A lot of English learners hesitate to speak because they want to plan their sentences perfectly. But real-life conversations don't work like that.
Yes, native speakers don't stop and plan every sentence before they speak. They just go with the flow. So, if you want to think faster in English, you need to practice speaking without overthinking.
Try this 1-minute challenge.
Set a timer for 1 minute. Pick a random topic: your day, your favorite food, your weekend plans.
Speak for the full minute without stopping or worrying about mistakes.
If you get stuck, just keep going. Use simple words, fillers like let me think, or even rephrase your sentence in an easier way.
And don't be afraid to record yourself doing this. Listening back will help you identify areas to improve. Keep a daily English journal.
Writing is another powerful way to train your brain to think in English.
Yes, when you write in English every day, your brain gets used to forming sentences in English without relying on translation.
It doesn't have to be complicated. You can start with simple sentences. Today, I woke up early and made coffee. It's a sunny day, and I feel happy. I watched a new movie last night. It was really funny.
And if you want to make it more fun, try writing a short daily summary about what happened in your day, or even a few sentences about your thoughts and feelings.
Exactly. The goal is to get your brain used to forming thoughts in English, and journaling is a great way to do that. Quick recap.
So let's quickly review the everyday habits that will help you strengthen your English brain. Watch content with English subtitles. Train your brain to connect words to meaning. Practice situational thinking. Imagine conversations before they happen. Engage in active listening. Pause, repeat, and summarize what you hear. Challenge yourself to speak without planning. 1-minute speaking drills. Keep a daily journal in English. Train your brain to form thoughts in English.
If you start practicing just one or two of these habits every day, you'll notice a huge improvement in how easily you think and speak in English.
And speaking of practice, we've got a fun challenge coming up next. Stay with us.
All right, we've talked about some really powerful ways to train your brain to think in English. Now it's time for you to take action and put these strategies into practice.
Exactly. The more you apply these methods, the faster you'll start thinking naturally in English without even realizing it. So to wrap up today's episode, let's go over what we've learned one last time.
Key takeaways from today's episode: 1. Thinking in English is a skill. Just like riding a bike or playing an instrument, it takes practice and consistency.
2. Your brain can rewire itself. Through neuroplasticity, your brain learns to think in English the more you use it.
3. Building daily habits is the key to success. Small, consistent actions like labeling objects, narrating your day, and watching English content will train your brain to process English automatically.
4. Speaking without overthinking helps fluency. Practice speaking out loud using the 1-minute challenge and situational thinking exercises.
5. Writing in English strengthens your thought process. Keeping a journal helps you form ideas in English without translating from your native language. Your fun challenge for today.
Your task is simple. Look around you right now and describe your surroundings in English without translating in your head. Step 1. Pick 3 things around you, e.g., your phone, a window, a cup of coffee.
Step 2. Say or write 1 sentence about each object. Step 3. If you get stuck, use simple words to explain. Don't worry about making mistakes. Example: I see a window. The sun is shining through it and the sky is blue. There is a cup of coffee on my desk. It smells really good and I can see steam coming out of it. My phone is next to me. It has a black case and I use it to listen to podcasts.
If you want to take it a step further, record yourself saying these sentences out loud and listen back to hear how natural it sounds.
And if you're up for an extra challenge, try thinking in English for the next 10 minutes. No translating allowed.
Thinking in English isn't about perfection, it's about progress. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. So don't stress if it feels awkward at first. Keep going, and soon it'll feel completely natural.
Exactly. Every small step you take today brings you closer to fluency. So commit to practicing just 1 or 2 of these habits daily, and you'll see real improvements in your English thinking and speaking skills.
We'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell us, what did you describe in English for today's challenge? Which habit are you going to try first?
And if you found today's episode helpful, don't forget to subscribe to the English Story Podcast, leave us a review, and share this episode with your friends.
Thanks for joining us today. Keep practicing, keep thinking in English, and most importantly, enjoy the process.
We'll see you in the next episode. Until then, happy learning.